All right, so if you clicked on this video, then you're probably very understandably interested in making more money. Now, I have made dozens of videos all about starting your own business as one path towards making a lot of money. But the reality is that entrepreneurship isn't right for most people, and actually only about 7% of the population are going to be entrepreneurs. The vast majority of people, maybe including you, are employees working in regular jobs. So if you're in that 93%, how do you actually make more money? Like, how do you work towards financial security without quitting your job and just starting a business? Now, this is a question that doesn't get nearly enough attention. We are constantly bombarded with messages about side hustles and passive income and entrepreneurship. But what if you actually like your job? And what if you want to advance in your career rather than just throw it away and leave it behind? Now, as someone who left a traditional career in medicine to make these silly videos on the internet, I am obviously nowhere near an expert on the topic. And so for this video, I wanted to have a conversation with Jenny Wood. Now, Jenny is a former Google executive and Harvard Business School researcher who founded the Own Your Career program, which is Google's largest career development program. She's helped thousands of people transform their careers and earn way more money through her talks and through her wonderful book, Wild Courage, which you should definitely read if you want to make more money in your job.
Most people think that to make more money, you have to go start your own business, that's what gives you financial freedom. Well, you can find financial freedom right within your own company. Get promoted, you keep getting raises, that interest compounds. You could be making 7 figures right within your own company.
Quick caveat here. Now, Jenny worked at Google in the US, where it's not uncommon to have a 7-figure $1 million plus salary. If you're not in tech or finance or another high-paying field, please don't fixate on the specific number. The point is that there is a lot within your control that can help you earn significantly more regardless of your industry. And so in this video, we're going to dive into 9 practical strategies that Jenny shared with me during our conversation. And if you apply any of these strategies, you're going to have a way better time at work and be way more likely to get a raise and thus make more money and thus be on your path towards financial freedom. I'm also going to be adding in my own hot takes on the advice that Jenny shares, because I'm an entrepreneur with a team of like 20 people. And so I'm actually on the other side of these conversations. I'm the guy having the conversation with my team members who want more money. And the tips we're going to talk about in this video are things that I completely agree with, because if my own team members did these things, they'd be way more likely to get raises and promotions. So let's start with strategy number 1, which is to become your boss's favorite employee. Now, this one is going to make some people uncomfortable because it can sound a lot like sucking up. But here is Jenny's take on exactly why you should become your boss's favorite employee.
You should try to become your boss's favorite employee because your boss can determine the future of your success, your career, and your financial freedom.
Now, obviously, this makes perfect sense if you think about it. Your boss is most likely the one who approves your raises or recommends you for promotions or assigns you to interesting and valuable projects. But what's interesting is that the relationship with your boss doesn't affect just your career. It actually affects your entire well-being.
How our boss feels about us has a tremendous impact on our happiness, our productivity, our livelihood, our engagement, our motivation. I would almost argue that it's a more important relationship than your partner or your spouse.
Wait, what? The relationship with your boss is more important than the relationship with your spouse? How does that work?
With your partner or your spouse, you know that there's that fundamental level of trust there. Like, it's baseline, you can count on it. If you have a little argument, at 2 p.m., you can resolve it by 8 p.m. But when you're unsure about how your manager feels about you, that is almost more damaging. When your boss doesn't like you, it feels frustrating and stressful, and you feel anxious and sometimes sleep deprived. You start thinking that you're not going to be able to grow or get promoted or get a raise.
For me personally, I had situations back when I had a real job working in medicine where when I'd be working with a manager or a boss or a senior doctor who I knew didn't like me, oh man, that would make going to work such a stressful experience.
When we're stressed about how our boss feels about us, all we can think about is that thing that you're not good at. And that negativity has such a dramatically negative impact on your health, on your psychology, on your emotions, on your mental well-being, on your physical well-being.
Okay, so these are all the reasons why having a poor relationship with your boss is pretty terrible for you. And if you've been in that position, you probably know how it feels. But let's now talk about the flip side. Why is it important to aim towards becoming your boss's favorite employee?
When your boss values you and likes you, you feel like you're walking on air. You feel like your career is on a rocket ship. You feel like you're probably going to land that next promotion. You're probably going to get that raise. And not just that, because those are aspirational goals, but you feel happy in your day to day. You feel more confident when you write an email to your peers, to a client, to a partner, to a stakeholder. And that feeling of confidence fuels more overall growth.
All right, so hopefully that convinced you that step 1 towards making more money as an employee within the context of your job is to get your manager or your boss to really like and value you. Now, how do you do that? Well, that's what the rest of this video is going to be about. And so we now have point number 2, which is actually prepare for your one-on-ones. So if you're watching this and you have a job, you probably have a manager, and you probably have some form of regular one-on-one conversations with your manager. The question is, how much time do you spend preparing for those conversations? And here I'm gonna share some examples that Jenny shared with me. So this is what most people do. Yeah, absolutely nothing. It's just like an empty Google Doc with like nothing written in it. This is what the majority of people do to prepare for their one-on-ones. The next level up from that is something like this. I have some ideas for hiking backpack sales. We're testing new marketing. I'd love to do a career check-in soon. You know, it's better than nothing, but it's still pretty crap. But what Jenny recommends instead, as a professional career coach and someone who helps people get promotions and raises, and someone who actually gives people promotions and raises when she was working at Google and has done the research on this is how she recommends preparing for your one-on-ones.
Have 4 categories for your one-on-one document, or 3 plus 1, let's call it. Business, operations, people, and then every 4 to 6 weeks, add career. And put bullets in there with numbers and links every single week.
And so on screen, this is an example that Jenny shared with me of what you could be writing in terms of preparation for your one-on-ones. There is a link to the Google Doc version of this down in the video description if you want to check it out directly. But if you're serious about this, making more money in your career stuff, I would recommend pausing the video, having a look at this document, and comparing it with the amount of preparation you currently do or don't do for your own one-on-ones.
This is the best use of your time because it's not just what you do that matters for your career, it's what your manager thinks you do.
This is worth repeating. It's not just what you do that matters for your career. It is what your manager thinks you do. And that brings us on to point number 3, which is the shameless Monday morning email. This is something that she talks about in the book as well. You can find way more details about this and all of the other strategies in the book if you want to read it.
The biggest career fallacy you will hear is keep your head down, do good work, your work will speak for itself. Spoiler alert, no it won't. Visibility matters.
Now, a lot of people, especially people junior in their careers, will think, oh, this is unfair. Like, my boss, my manager it's their job to recognize my work and to reward me for it. But it's just really not how it works.
Your manager isn't a mind reader. If they've got 7 direct reports, they've got 7 times as many things on their plate as you have on your plate.
And so it's not a case of your manager is malicious or like toxic or whatever. I mean, they might be, but like that's a side point, and there's details in the book if you want to have that issue. It's usually not that they don't care about you. They want to care about you. They want you to do a good job. They want to be a good manager. It's just that they have too much stuff on their plate. And so you being more proactive about showing what you are working on is super, super helpful. And one very easy way to do this is sending an email to your boss or your manager every Monday morning.
It's basically a manifesto of what you did the last week and what you're going to do this week. Things you accomplished last week that you're proud of, things you're going to work on to move the business forward next week. But I call it a mini-festo because it should only take you 15 minutes to write. And it's going to feel scary and hard to do the first time, but you will get into such a rhythm that it becomes totally normal. And if you're spending more than 15 minutes on this, you are spending too long on it.
And again, very kindly, Jenny has provided us an example. So this is an example of what your Monday email could look like. Here is a quick update on my work from last week and what's on my radar for this week. Last week highlights 1 and 2. This week's priorities 1 and 2. Excited to chat more about this in our one-to-one. You can send this as an email, you can send it as a Slack DM, you can send it as a WhatsApp message. And if you are a manager who happens to be watching this video, man, imagine how great it would feel if your own direct reports were to send you an email like this every Monday morning, completely unprompted, that just gave you a bit more visibility about what the hell they are actually doing. That would be so cool, right? And yet, like, so few people do stuff like this. This is such an easy thing to do. It just takes 15 minutes to do, and it gives your boss or your manager way more visibility over exactly what you're doing. All right, so normally at this point, I would tell you about the video sponsor, and this video sponsor happens to be me, because I would like to sponsor this video with my own product. It's called VoicePal. It is the ghostwriter in your pocket. VoicePal is an app available for iOS and Android. My team and I have been building it over the last 12 months, and I've been using it for the last 12 months for any kind of writing that I need to do. So if you have to do any kind of writing for your work or for your creator stuff or whatever the thing is, instead of sitting at a computer and staring at a blank screen and trying to type stuff out, you might find that, like me, you're much better at speaking your thoughts out loud. So in VoicePal, you basically just go on a walk, you hit record, you speak whatever you want to speak. The app will ask you sensible follow-up questions based on what you've said, and you can export it to your computer or wherever else you'd like to do your editing. Every single week, by using VoicePal, I generate more ideas, I'm able to expand on those ideas, and I save way more time and have way more fun walking around speaking out my content that I need to write for various things, rather than sitting hunched on the computer typing and getting writer's block. So if you need to do any kind of writing for your professional life, or your creator life, or your entrepreneurial life, or anything like that, then I would love it if you can check out VoicePal. There is a link down below. So thank you, VoicePal, for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to it. All right, let's move on to tip number 4, which is you versus I.
I call this woo with you. When you're communicating with your boss, try to start as many sentences as possible, verbally or written, with the word you rather than the word I.
Now, this is a hack that you can apply to the way you communicate verbally and in a written fashion in any kind of professional context, maybe even in any kind of personal context. And here is an example that illustrates it. She was doing a talk for some company and she wrote the first variation of this email. Hi, Adam. I loved the gift box you sent. I enjoyed doing the keynote because I'm so passionate about helping people thrive. I love helping people achieve their goals, so thank you for inviting me, Jenny. So there's way more instances of the word I than the word you in that particular email. So as Jenny talks about in her book, she rewrote this email to focus on you rather than focus on I. And this is the rewriting of that email. Hi, Adam. Thank you for the gift box you sent. Your team was such a great group and you made it seamless to partner. Appreciate you creating an opportunity to contribute to your team's goals. I can't wait to do it again, Jenny. And this is a very simple example of how shifting the focus from I and moving more towards you is actually a really powerful communication technique that you can use in almost any context.
Most people anchor on what's in it for them. Let's say you're in a job interview. I want to grow in this way. I want to learn this thing. I want to build my network. But that's wrong. That is thinking that is going to hold you back, because when you're getting interviewed for a job or you're trying to prove to your boss that you're ready for promotion, they want to know how you can move the business. What metrics can you move? Can you increase customer satisfaction? Can you increase revenue? Can you make the operations faster? Can you make systems more productive? They're the one paying you, right? The growth and the development and the skills, they'll follow. Of course, you'll learn and grow and do cool things and double your network, but focus on what's in it for the company.
This is a quick tip for job interviews as well. Like I've hired lots of people over the years. I have seen thousands of resumes at this point. I've done dozens of interviews, and there are some people that are really good at job interviews, and most people just really suck at doing job interviews because they haven't been taught this kind of stuff. But one very easy thing to do is to recognize that the person interviewing you, they don't actually care about you. They care about themselves. They care about what value you can add to their company. If I'm hiring you and I ask you in a job interview, why do you want this job? You probably shouldn't say something like, I want this job because it'll really help me learn, and I love the idea of working with your team, and I've seen some of your videos over the last few years, and I would love to learn how to do the social media stuff because I want a career in like the creator economy. This is sort of stuff people say in job interviews, but it's not really what I want to hear. It's like, yeah, great. I know that you want to learn stuff, but I'm going to be the one paying your salary. Like, if you wanted to learn all this stuff, you should be paying me, but I'm the one paying you if you're going to get this job. So like, what's in it for me? And so an alternative way to answer the question of like, why do you want this job? Might be to say something like, I really want this job because I think I can add a lot of value to you and your business. I've got skills in X, Y, and Z, which I know can help your mission of helping people build a life they love, or like growing your personal brand, or like helping you sell more books, or helping you sell more courses. All of this stuff that I can do will help increase your revenue and your profits, which means you'll be able to invest more resources in like furthering the mission. And on the side, I'm hoping to learn stuff as well. It's like you're leading with the value to the person you're communicating with. You're leading with you, and you're like bringing in the, and I want to learn stuff on the side. Whereas people often like flip this around, or they just don't think about the you thing at all. And it's totally understandable. Like a question like, why do you want this job? The honest answer to the question is, well, because I think it would be cool and it makes money and it will help me learn stuff. But that is not the right thing to say at an interview, because the employer doesn't care about you at that point. They care about themselves. They care about the value you can provide them, because they're the one who are fundamentally paying you. Oh, and by the way, if you are interested, we've actually got an internal document that we have as a list of powerful questions that we encourage team members to ask to me and to Angus, who's the general manager of the business, and team members to ask to their own managers. This document with all the questions is freely available on my website. There's a link down below if you want to check it out. All right, let's move on to tip number 5, which is to tame the octopus. And really the key skill that we want to learn here is communicating with conviction.
Communicating with conviction is one of the most critical skills that anybody can learn, no matter where they are in their career, no matter what level they are at any organization. So this tool is called Tame the Octopus, and it's about how to have more succinct communication so that you can be more compelling and more influential and speak with more authority in a team meeting, in a one-on-one with your boss. It's basically how to stop rambling.
Now here is an example of a little role play that Jenny and I did as an example of how to tame the octopus. Jenny, what are the challenges that your team are facing this quarter?
Oh, well, gosh, there are so many challenges. We're a brand new team, so we've got all sorts of goals that we have to figure out. We've got lots of priorities, and we have to figure out like what's the important stuff and what's the unimportant stuff, which reminds me that all the tools that we're working on are kind of like all over the place. We've got some stuff in a spreadsheet. We've got some third-party tools. We've got stuff going on with the API, which also makes me think about the fact that there's a lot to keep track of with our global organizations. We've got teams in Europe, teams in America, teams in Asia. And with all the people sitting across the globe, like we really need to be aligned, and it's hard to figure out the alignment. And think about how that sounds to your boss.
God, that sounds terrible.
It sounds terrible, right? You asked me, what are your biggest challenges? And I gave you a big bowl of word salad.
Yeah.
That is not going to get your boss to fall in love with you.
All right, so that was a bad example example of what this looks like, let's now look at what happens when Jenny tames the octopus and gives a better response. So Jenny, what are the challenges that your team is facing this quarter?
Good question. Let me think about that for just a sec. The biggest challenges my team is facing are number 1, priorities, number 2, tools, and number 3, global alignment. Priorities because we're a brand new team and we have to figure out the important versus the unimportant. Tools because we're doing some things in-house, some things with a third party, and we want to be more buttoned up across all of our tooling strategy. And number 3, global alignment. Because we sit across Americas, Asia, and Europe, we need to work more in concert together, not in opposition with each other. So the 3 biggest challenges my team is facing right now are priorities, tools, and global alignment.
That's much nicer.
How much easier was that to follow?
I'm like, oh, okay, I get it.
Right, exactly. And so what did I do there? I paused. I took a moment to write down maybe 5 or 6 or 7 things that I could say. I circled 3 that felt the most relevant. And then when I started talking, I led with just those words, just the word priorities, just the word tools, and just the phrase global alignment. Then I gave a little bit of information on each one. And finally, I buttoned it all up, repeating those same 3 key things. People feel nervous, feel insecure about pausing, as if they'll sound stupid to their boss or to their teammates, or they'll sound unprepared. But it actually has the opposite effect. You sound more prepared and more poised and smarter and more buttoned up. And it's the kind of thing you can do right there in your team meeting before you even come off of mute. Common sense, but rarely common practice.
There is another key tip to taming the octopus, which is something that I absolutely love. I love it when my team do this. It annoys me when they don't do this, which is basically give 3 options with a point of view.
I call this give 3 options, have a POV. Let's say you work at an ice cream manufacturer and you have to decide, should your strategy this next year be vanilla ice cream, strawberry ice cream, or chocolate ice cream? No matter where you are in your career, you will always impress your boss if you go to them and say, well, these are our 3 options, strawberry, vanilla, and chocolate. And I recommend that we double down on strawberry. Here's the data behind it. Here's what's trending in the market. And I recommend it for XYZ reasons.
Now, this seems like common sense, but it's really not common practice. And I asked Jenny, why don't people do this more often?
People don't practice communicating this way. People think that maybe it looks like they're trying too hard. Like, oh, what, I'm gonna write down my answers before I start talking. Heck yeah, you're gonna write down your answers before you start talking.
All right, let's move on to point number 6 now, which is the grab first slide template. Now, if you're an employee in any kind of business, chances are you're going to have to create some sort of slide deck from time to time. And here are Jenny's thoughts on how to improve your first slide so that you can be way more likely to become your boss's favorite employee and make more money and all of that fun stuff.
What's common is that everybody spends hours putting together their 40-slide deck, perfecting the data, making sure the font size and the design all looks great. But what's counterintuitive is how critical that first slide is. You want that first slide to grab their attention so they know exactly what you're asking for.
So again, thank you, Jenny, for providing this example. This is an example of a pretty bad slide. It's too much data, there's unclear purpose, there's no clear request behind why we're being presented with all of this information. Again, you want to recognize the executive or the boss or the manager or the person you're presenting to, chances are they're way busier than you are, because they probably have more stuff and more responsibilities on their plate with higher stakes than you probably do. And so the grab method that Jenny talks about is about how to make your first slide grab someone's attention by giving them the key information they need up front. So this is an example of what a normal person who hasn't been trained in this stuff might have as their crappy first slide. And side by side, we'll show you an example of what the grab slide looks like with the information filled in. And if you are an executive or a manager attending a presentation, it's just so much nicer to get all the information you need up front and to know what the point of the presentation is, rather than to have that thing happening 27 minutes into the half-an-hour presentation. All right, next we move on to point number 7, which is to become an energizer.
And you know what? There is no asset that's more in demand in any organization than being a net positive energy contributor.
Now, I want you to imagine a manager who has like 6 one-on-one meetings in a day, back to back on their calendar. That's what most managers' calendars look like. Maybe that's what your calendar looks like if you're a manager. Now, there are some people on that list that they will look forward to the meeting. And there are some people on that list that they're gonna dread the meeting. Now, the question for you is, are you one of those people where your manager looks forward to meeting with you? Or are you one of those people, if you're being honest with yourself, are you one of those people that your manager dreads meeting? Generally, what separates these two groups is, are you a net positive energy contributor? Are you an energizer? Do you give the other person energy? Do you create energy for the people around you? Or are you a bit negative? Are you a bit down? Are you a bit complainy, a bit criticizey? Do you drain energy from the context that you're in? This is not to say that if you're having issues at work, you shouldn't bring them up. obviously, but just sort of day to day, do you think you add more energy to the people around you, or do you think you take energy away from the people around you? You probably know people, right? That you hang out with them, you're in a meeting with them, and you feel good about it afterwards. You also probably know people, some people in your team, maybe some people in your personal life. You hang out with them, and you sort of feel drained afterwards. Like, which of those people are you? You are way more likely to become your boss's favorite employee, or to be your boss's favorite employee, and therefore get all the promotions and raises and stuff, if you are a net energy contributor. There's actually research that I cited in my own book, Feel Good Productivity, that has been done in organizations where they create this sort of energy map, and they ask all of the people in the organization who's like an energizer and who's a drainer, and then they map it all on like a piece of paper or a graph, whatever. And they find that the people who are energizers, they make more money, they get more promotions, they get better evaluations from their peers, they get better evaluations from their managers, they're better on objective tests of job performance as well. There's just so much value to being a positive contributor to the environment that you are in.
You want to be one of the energizers. You want to be a radiator. You want to be one of the people that your boss looks forward to meeting with each day. When someone is a net positive energy contributor, that relationship that they build with their boss as a result of that ends up helping them stay around longer, get promoted, get a raise, because people like to do work with people that they like.
And there is a bunch more advice in this book about exactly how to become an energizer if you currently think you are not one of those people. All right, now we move on to tip number 8, which is to schedule a career development conversation.
It can be really hard to ask for what you want, or just even to ask for help in general. But asking for help in your career is one of the ways that you can be most successful, get a promotion, get a raise. Have a dedicated 30 to 45 minute meeting. Title of the meeting, and this is critical, nobody thinks about this, the title should be Career Development Conversation, not your regular one-on-one title. That sends the signal that this is all about your career, your growth, your desire to get a raise, your desire to get a promotion.
Now, this is something that you can do with your own manager. It's also something you can do with your manager's manager. Yes, that's right. You could actually get to know your boss's boss. This is something Jenny talks about in the book as well. Honestly, this is something I wish my team probably did more of. Like, I'm not the direct manager for anyone in my team except my general manager, Angus. And almost no one in my team messages me to say, hey, Ali, I would love to chat to you, 15-minute, 30-minute phone call to, talk about my career development or anything like that. If they did, I would say, yeah, sure, of course that makes perfect sense. But they're probably worried about messaging me because I'm not technically their manager and they don't want to waste my time and stuff. But feels weird to admit this, but they are probably holding themselves back by not proactively communicating with me directly and thinking that my time is too valuable for them. Yeah, it might take me a while to respond to the message. It might have to be at a weird time because I'm in a weird time zone and stuff. But someone having a career development conversation with me directly, even beyond their manager, is going to be a very, very, very helpful thing for their career. In fact, this is something I talked to Jenny about in the podcast, and this is what she said about her own experience.
For the first 10 years I was at Google, I held back. I was insecure. I was rife with imposter syndrome. I was terrified to set up a one-on-one with my boss's boss. And it was so limiting in my career, and it cut off so many opportunities that I would have had otherwise.
When you build a relationship, not just with your own manager, but with your manager's manager, and maybe the other people at that level of the leadership team, or whatever size organization you're in, you're way more likely to get raises and promotions, because usually in most organizations, raises and promotions are not a one-person decision. There's usually a group of people that are making those decisions. And so if you have positive relationships, not just with your manager, but also with their peers, or also your manager's manager and maybe some of their peers, you're way more likely to get these promotions and get these raises. And yeah, you can maybe argue that, this is workplace politics, I shouldn't have to do that. Yeah, I agree, you shouldn't have to do that. But again, a point that comes up in Jenny's book quite a lot is that a business is simply a social group that needs customers. A business is simply a social group that needs customers. And I think this is really true. I kind of laughed out loud when she first told me this idea. But that's basically what it is. I have a team of about 20 people, and it's basically a social group that happens to need customers, right? Because we got to pay the bills. And so the stuff that works in a friendship group, being an energizer, being a positive influence in the group, being someone that people look forward to hanging out with, that stuff goes a long way towards getting ahead. And then finally, tip number 9 is to work together with your manager on getting you a raise.
You always want to lead with what and how questions when you're asking for a promotion. What might it look like to partner on a promotion? How can we work together to achieve a raise in 6 months? Never yes or no questions. Can I get a raise? No. Can my raise be $20,000? No. You want to give them the opportunity to weigh in so that they can buy in, and you do that by asking open-ended questions and making them part of the team that's going to get you promoted.
We are not going to go into in-depth advice in this video about specifically how to get a raise. She talks about it a lot in the book, which you can check out. And I'll put some links to more of Jenny's resources down in the video description. So this video was a little bit of a departure from tradition and the usual content we have about how to become financially free by starting your own business. But if you're at this point in the video, I hope you got some value from it. And I would love to know in the comments, what is one actionable point that you are going to take forward from this video? Because otherwise the video just ends up being another one of those things that you watch and rarely take action on. I mean, I'm not throwing shade on you. I do the same as well. I watch all these YouTube videos. I very rarely take action on them. But some videos where the YouTuber prompts me to take action, I'll be like, oh yeah, I actually do want to take action on this. So I'm going to do something about it. Anyway, I'd love to hear in the comments what you thought of this video and what action you're going to take as a result. And if you do have a normal job and you're interested in molding your career in a way that helps you build a career that you love, check out this video over here. This is a book club episode that I did with Professor Grace Lorden of the London School of Economics, which is less about how to specifically get a raise, but more about how to mold your career in a way that actually feels more meaningful and fulfilling for you. So you can check that out right over there. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.